Students, once again, welcome in the world of biology. Myself, Professor Vikram sir, we are discussing on life processes chapter. In previous video, we covered the two different types of life processes. Those were nutrition and respiration. In this video, we are going to study about the transportation type of life process in detail. If you like this video, then subscribe my channel so that you will get the notifications of my upcoming videos. The content of this video are transportation in human beings, heart, that is structure of heart, blood vessels, lymph, blood pressure, transportation in plants, transportation of water, osmotic pressure and transpiration pull, and last one, transportation of food. In the next slide, our first point is transportation. So the first type of transportation we have to see, that is transportation in human beings. In that, the first point is, in human beings, blood help to transport the food, oxygen and waste material. Okay, so in case of human beings, blood is a fluid connective tissue which help to transport the food, oxygen and waste materials. The second point here is, blood consists of a fluid called as plasma, in which blood cells are suspended. Actually, there are two different parts of blood. The first one is fluid part called as plasma, and second one blood cells. Okay, so there are three different types of blood cells found in the blood. Those are RBCs, WBCs and blood platelets. The third point here is, plasma transport food, carbon dioxide and nitrogenous waste in dissolved form. Okay, so the fluid part of blood, that is plasma, help to carry food, carbon dioxide and nitrogenous waste in dissolved form along with it. The fourth point here is, oxygen is carried by red blood cells. Okay, so from the blood cells, the RBCs help to carry the oxygen along with it. The fifth point here is, many other substances like salts are also transported by blood. So blood also help to transport the many different types of substances like salts along with it. The sixth point here is, transportation system in human beings consists of following three things. The first thing here is, a pumping organ, that is heart, is required to push the blood around the body. The second thing is, a network of tubes, that is blood vessels, to reach all the tissues. And third thing is, a system to repair the damaged network. In the next slide, our first point is, first thing is the heart. In that, the first point is, the heart is a muscular organ which has size equal to human fist. Okay, so heart is a muscular organ which has size equal to human fist. The second point here is, heart has different chambers to prevent the mixing of oxygen rich blood with the blood containing carbon dioxide. Okay, so heart has four different chambers which prevent the mixing of oxygen rich blood with the carbon dioxide rich blood. Okay, means oxygenated blood gets separated from the deoxygenated blood with the help of different chambers found in the heart. We can see here the structure of heart. In the structure of heart, we can see the different labeling. In that, we'll start the labeling from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Okay, the superior and inferior vena cava both carry the blood, deoxygenated blood along with it. It is get passes toward the right atrium. From the right atrium, the blood get entered into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the blood get entered into the it get flow toward or pass toward the lungs with the help of pulmonary artery. From the lungs, the blood again get entered into the heart through the pulmonary vein. From the pulmonary vein, the blood enter into the left atrium. After that, it is get passed toward the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the blood gets supplied to each and every body part with the help of aorta. So they are the various parts of the this structure of heart. And here we can see the pulmonary wall, tricuspid wall, aortic wall and mitral wall. Okay, so this is the explanation about the structure of heart. In the next slide, we will describe the structure of heart in detail. See here the description of structure of heart. The first point here is, internally heart is divided into four chambers. Okay, the first point here is, internally the heart is divided into four chambers. It means that in human beings, four chambered heart is present. The second point here is, upper chambers are called as atria and lower chambers are called as ventricles. Okay, so this is the very important point. From the four different chambers, the upper chambers are called as atria and the lower chambers are called as ventricles. The third point here is, the atria and ventricles are further divided into right and left chambers respectively. Okay, so the atria and ventricles are further divided into right and left chambers respectively. The fourth point here is the muscles of atria and ventricles show rhythmic contraction and relaxation. Okay, so it is the specialty of heart muscles, that is the muscles of atria and ventricles show rhythmic contraction and relaxation. Okay, that's why there is pumping of the heart occurs. After that, the fifth point here is the walls of ventricles are thicker than the walls of atria. Okay, so there is a reason behind this. The ventricles has to push the blood to different part of the body. That's why the walls of ventricles are more thicker than the walls of atria. The sixth point here is the atria also help to collect the blood, and ventricles help to pump the blood. Okay, so atria help to collect the blood from the different part of the body, and the ventricle help to pump the blood to different part of the body. So seventh point here is, at first the deoxygenated blood from the superior and inferior vena cava get collected into the right atrium. Okay, so as I already told that the superior and inferior vena cava both carry the deoxygenated blood from different part of the body into right atrium. The eighth point here is the deoxygenated blood from the right atrium passes toward the right ventricle. So from the right atrium the blood flow toward the right ventricle. The ninth point here is the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle pumped toward the lungs for oxygenation through the pulmonary artery. Okay, so from the right ventricle the deoxygenated blood get pumped toward the lungs for the oxygenation purpose. The 10th point here is the oxygenated blood from the lungs again enter into the left atrium through the 4 pulmonary veins. Okay, so after oxygenation of the deoxygenated blood, the oxygenated blood get enter into the left atrium through the 4 pulmonary veins. The 11th point here is the oxygenated blood from the left atrium passes toward the left ventricle. So the oxygenated blood from the left atrium get passed toward the left ventricles. The 12th point here is the left ventricle pumps this oxygenated blood toward the different part of the body through aorta. So the oxygenated blood from the left ventricle get pumped with the help of the strong muscles of ventricles to different part of the body through aorta. The 13th point here is there are walls present in between the atria and ventricle as well as at the opening of the pulmonary artery and veins. Okay, so we can see in the structure of heart that the walls are present in between the atria and ventricle as well as in between the pulmonary artery and or at the opening of the pulmonary artery and vein. The 14th point here is the walls ensure that blood does not flow backward when atria and ventricles contract. Okay, actually the name of the walls are the tricuspid walls, bicuspid walls, actually that pulmonary walls, and that aortic walls. These are the various walls present in the structure of heart. We can see the diagram. So the function of that walls is to prevent the backward flow of blood when it is passes in only one direction. Okay, so the 15th point here is the right atrium is separated from the right ventricle by the tricuspid wall, and left atrium gets separated from the left ventricle by the bicuspid wall. That this bicuspid wall is also called as mitral wall. Okay, so the right atrium gets separated from the right ventricle with the help of tricuspid wall, and the left atrium gets separated from the left ventricle with the help of bicuspid wall, or this bicuspid wall is also called as mitral wall. Okay, so this is the complete description about the structure of heart, and here we can also cover the conduction of blood through the different chambers of heart. Okay, so after that in the next slide we can see the diagram. Here this is the description about the flow of or conduction of the blood through the different chambers of the heart as well as in the lungs as well as different body part. Okay, so here we can see the vena cava. Vena cava means superior and inferior vena cava collects the deoxygenated blood. The deoxygenated blood is indicated with the help of blue color, and the oxygenated blood is indicated with the help of red color. So we can see here the blue colored deoxygenated blood and red colored oxygenated blood. So from the left chamber of the heart, the blood get pumped into the lungs for the oxygenation purpose. After oxygenation, the oxygenated blood get entered into the left chamber of the heart. Okay, from the left chamber the blood again push toward the different part of the body for the supply of oxygen, and after consumption of oxygen, the body again releases this deoxygenated blood along with the different component toward the heart. Okay, so this is the conduction pathway of the blood through the different part of the body as well as through the four chambers of the heart. Okay, so we can see the different labeling here. This labeling describe the heart as well as conduction of blood through the different part of the body in detail. In the next slide, our next point is efficiency of blood, that is oxygen supply in different animals. Okay, so in different animals, the oxygen, that is blood, is supplied in different way. So we have to see the efficiency of that blood or oxygen. The first point here is the separation of right and left side of the heart is useful to prevent the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Okay, actually see, in case of heart, the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood gets separated so that the efficiency of particular animal is more, because more amount of or large amount of oxygen is supplied because of this separation. The second point here is such separation allows a high efficient supply of oxygen to the body. So because of separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, the highly efficient means oxygen is supplied to each and every body part with high efficient manner. The third point here is this system is useful in animals having high energy needs like birds and mammals, which constantly use energy to maintain their body temperature. Actually see, in case of warm-blooded animals like birds and animals, it requires large amount of energy to maintain the normal body temperature as well as for the movement purpose. So in that animals, to maintain the normal body temperature, large amount of energy required. So there is oxygen is supplied. There means oxygen must be supplied in efficient manner. Okay, so above given system, that is separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood must be, or it is efficient way to supply the oxygen to each and every body part. The fourth point here is the animals in which energy consumption is less, their body temperature depends on temperature in the environment. Okay, so actually the fourth point explains about the cold-blooded animals. Okay, in those animals in which energy consumption is less, okay, that animals are cold-blooded animals in which energy consumption is less, therefore their body temperature depends on temperature in the environment. Okay, so there is less energy requirement in their body. After that, the fifth point here is the animals like amphibians or many reptiles have three-chambered heart and tolerate some mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So in case of amphibians and many reptiles, okay, actually amphibians and reptiles are cold-blooded animals, so they have three-chambered heart, and because of presence of three-chambered heart, some amount of mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood get tolerated. The sixth point here is fishes have only two-chambered heart in which blood is pumped toward the gills for the oxygenation and passes directly to the rest of the body. Okay, actually in case of fishes only two-chambered heart is present. So this, because of presence of two-chambered heart, the blood is pumped toward the gills for the oxygenation purpose, and that oxygenated blood directly supplied toward the different part of the body to supply the oxygen. So the seventh point here is thus in fishes during each cycle the blood flows through their heart only one time. Okay, actually in case of fishes, because of presence of two-chambered heart, only the blood flow through the heart only one time. The eighth point here is in other vertebrates the blood flows through the heart twice during each cycle. So in other vertebrates like warm-blooded animals, the blood flows through heart in each cycle twice. Okay, so in every cycle the blood flows through the heart two times. So that's why the ninth point here is this is known as double circulation. Actually double circulation means the flow of blood occurs through heart two times during each cycle. So this flow of blood through the heart is called as double circulation of blood. In the next slide, our next point is blood vessels, that is structure and functions. See, the first point here is due to the beating of heart, the blood circulates continuously through the blood vessels. Okay, actually there is continuous pumping of the heart occurs. That's why blood continuously pumped through the blood vessels. The second point here is there are three main types of the blood vessels. The first one is the arteries, second one is the veins, and third one is the capillaries. So there are three different types of the blood vessels. The first one is the arteries, second veins, and third one is the capillaries. See the arteries. The first type of blood vessel is arteries. In that, first point is blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart are called as arteries. Okay, those blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart are called as arteries. The second point here is all arteries carry oxygenated blood except one, that is pulmonary artery, which carries deoxygenated blood toward the lungs. See, all arteries in our body carries oxygenated blood except there is an exception that pulmonary artery present in the lungs carry deoxygenated blood toward the lungs for oxygenation purpose. The third point here is these are deeply located in the body. Actually, arteries are deeply located in the body. The fourth point here is the walls of arteries are thick. Okay, so as heart directly pump its blood into the arteries, that's why the walls of arteries are thick than walls of veins. The fifth point here is these vessels do not have walls. Actually, the arteries do not have walls because the blood pumped by heart directly pump into arteries. That's why already the blood present in the arteries have or it is in high pressure. That's why there is no need of walls in the arteries. So after this, our second type of blood vessel is vein. See, in that first point is blood vessels which carry blood toward the heart from various part of the body are called as veins. Okay, so the blood vessels that carry blood toward the heart from the different part of the body are called as veins. The second point here is all veins carry deoxygenated blood except one, that is pulmonary veins, which carry oxygenated blood from lungs. Okay, so all veins in our body carry deoxygenated blood from different part of the body toward lungs, toward heart. But there is an exception that pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood from lungs to heart, that is left atrium part of the heart. The third point here is veins are superficially located in the body. Okay, so the veins are superficially means on the surface of the skin or under the epidermis of skin, the veins are found. That is, this is the location called a superficial location. So veins are superficially found in the body. The fourth point here is the walls of the veins are very thin. Okay, so their walls, the walls of veins are thin. Okay, actually thin means it is means the actually whatever the thickness of that walls of veins is very thin. Okay, the fifth point here is these vessels are provided with walls. Actually, see, the blood flows through veins. It is at low pressure. That's why to carry the blood from different part of the body toward the heart, it requires large amount of blood pressure. But because of availability of less blood pressure, the walls are provided. Okay, the walls prevent the backward flow of blood once it is get pumped in one direction. Okay, so in case of veins, there is only unidirectional flow of blood occurs, that is from different part of the body toward the heart. Okay, for that purpose walls are present in the veins. Our next type of blood vessel is capillaries. In that, the first point is the arteries spread in the body by dividing and decreasing their diameter and finally forms a fine hair-like vessels are called as capillaries. Okay, so see the first point in case of capillaries, that is definition of capillaries. Okay, that definition is the arteries spread in the body by dividing and decreasing their diameter and finally forms fine hair-like vessels called as capillaries. The second point here is walls of capillaries are extremely thin. Okay, we have already covered this point in the nutrition as well as in the respiration point of this chapter. So the walls of capillaries are very thin or extremely thin. The third point here is they are made up of single layers of cells. Okay, actually see the comparison of wall of capillaries is equal to it is the single layer of cell only. The fourth point here is due to this exchange of material between capillaries and cells occur easily. Okay, so because of thin walls of the capillaries, extreme thinness of the capillaries, there is exchange of materials occurs in between the cells and capillaries. The fifth point here is during exchange, the oxygen, nutrients, hormones, vitamins, etc. are sent toward the cells and waste materials of the cells move into the blood. Okay, so during the exchange of this oxygen, during the exchange of different gases, the oxygen, nutrients, hormones, vitamins, etc. are sent toward the cells, and at the same time, waste materials of the cells move toward the blood. Okay, so the sixth point here is capillaries unite together to form vessels of more and more diameter called as veins. Okay, so after dividing the arteries, the vessels of smaller size or microscopic size formed called as capillaries, and after reunion of capillaries, there is vessels of large diameter formed called as veins. The seventh point here is capillary network is present in each organ. So in each and every organ or in each and every body part, the capillary network is found. In the next slide, our next point is maintenance by platelets. See, the first point is the blood contains platelet cells which circulate around the body and plug the leaks found on the blood vessels with the help of clot at the point of injury. Okay, so we already told that blood consists of three different types of cells. From that, blood platelets help for the blockage of any leakage on the blood vessels. Okay, see, the platelet cells found in the blood circulate around the body and they plug the leaks found on the blood vessels with the help of clot at the point of injury. Okay, when there is injury on the blood vessels, then they form a clot on that injury, and so that they prevent the outward flow or leakage of blood from that particular injured part. After that, our next point is lymph. Okay, so here our next point started, that is lymph. Lymph is a lymph is a byproduct of, we can say lymph as a byproduct of the blood. Okay, so it is a part of blood, it is formed from blood itself. Okay, so we'll see the different points about the lymph. See the first point. Another type of fluid involved in the transportation is called as lymph or tissue fluid. Okay, so already I have discussed the tissue fluid in the previous points. So the meaning of lymph is another type of fluid involved in the transportation is called as lymph or tissue fluid. Okay, the second point here is some amount of plasma, proteins and blood cells filtered through the pores present on the walls of the capillaries into the intracellular spaces in the tissues to form tissue fluid or lymph. Okay, see, when each and every capillary reaches to a bulk of or a group of cells, there is a gap present in between two cells. That gap is called as intracellular space, and within that intracellular space there is an intracellular fluid is present. That intracellular fluid is formed by the filtration of some amount of plasma, proteins and blood cells through the pores present on the walls of the capillaries. Actually, that filtration is nothing but the content of blood. Okay, so that filtrate does not contains RBCs or WBCs. It consists of some types of WBCs itself. Okay, platelets are absent, RBCs are absent, and some amount of WBCs are present only. Okay, so the plasma, proteins and blood cells filter through the pores present on the walls of the capillaries into the intracellular spaces in the tissues to form tissue fluid or lymph. Okay, so in this way lymph or tissue fluid forms. The third point here is lymph is similar to the plasma of the blood but colorless and contains less proteins. Actually, see, lymph is similar to plasma of the blood. See, blood plasma means it is the fluid part of the blood. So lymph is equal to, it is similar like plasma, but that lymph is colorless and contains less proteins. The fourth point here is lymph drains into lymphatic capillaries from the intracellular spaces which join to form large lymph vessels that finally open into the large veins. Okay, so the lymph drains, actually whatever the intracellular fluid or tissue fluid which is get collected, that after supplying the different nutrients, oxygen as well as different component of the tissue fluid to each and every cell, the lymph drains out into the lymphatic capillaries and after joining the lymphatic capillaries, there is a large lymph vessels are formed, and that large lymph vessels are connected to large veins. The fifth point here is lymph carries digested and absorbed fat from intestine and drains excess fluid from extracellular space back into the blood. Okay, see, lymph carries digested and absorbed fat from the intestine and drains excess of fluid from the extracellular space back into the blood. Okay, so these are the various points about the lymph. In the next slide, our next point is blood pressure. See, the force exerted by blood on the walls of blood vessels is called as blood pressure. Okay, so this is the definition of blood pressure, in which the force exerted by blood on the walls of blood vessel is called as blood pressure. Okay, during contraction or during pumping of heart, the heart pump blood into the arteries. Okay, so because of high blood pressure inside the artery, the high pressure blood exert force on the wall of the wall of the arteries from inner side. So this force is called as blood pressure. The second point is the blood pressure is much greater in arteries than veins. Actually, blood is at high pressure in the arteries than veins. Okay, in veins the blood is at low pressure. The third point here is the pressure of blood inside the artery during ventricular systole is called as systolic pressure. Okay, so the pressure of blood inside the arteries during ventricular systole is called as systolic pressure. And the fourth point here is the pressure in the artery during ventricular diastole, that is relaxation, is called as diastolic pressure. Okay, so the pressure in the artery during ventricular diastole or relaxation is called as diastolic pressure. Okay, so systolic pressure and diastolic pressure both are important terms. The normal systolic pressure is about 120 mm of Hg and diastolic pressure is 80 mm of Hg. Okay, so systolic pressure means during contraction of the heart, the pressure exerted on the wall of artery is called as systolic pressure. So the normal value of systolic pressure is 120 mm of Hg, that is mercury, and diastolic pressure is 80 mm of mercury, that is Hg. Okay, mm means millimeter. The sixth point here is blood pressure is measured with the help of an instrument called a sphygmomanometer. So sphygmomanometer is an instrument which is used to measure the blood pressure. The seventh point here is hypertension, that is high blood pressure, is caused due to constriction of arterioles which result into increased resistance to the blood flow. Okay, so hypertension is caused due to the constriction of arterioles which result into increased resistance to the blood flow. Okay, so because of contraction of the blood vessels, there is resistance in the blood flow increases. That condition is called as hypertension. The eighth point here is it can lead to rupture of an artery and internal bleeding. Okay, so because of hypertension, there is rupturing of arteries as well as internal bleeding may occur. So in the next slide, our next point is transportation in plants. So in a previous slide, we covered the transportation in human beings. We have covered the different points about the transportation in human beings. So after that, the next type of transportation we have to see, that is transportation in plants. See, the first point in that, the transportation system in plants involves two pathways. Okay, the transportation system in plants involves two pathways. Actually, see, the first one is when the xylem moves water and minerals obtained from the soil. Okay, the first pathway is the xylem moves water and minerals obtained from the soil, and second one, the other, that is phloem, transport products of photosynthesis from leaves where they are synthesized to other part of the plants. Okay, so the transportation system in plants involves two pathway. In that, the first pathway is the xylem which carries water and minerals from the soil to a different part of the body, to a different part of the plant body, and the second pathway is phloem, which transport the products of photosynthesis from leaves to a different part of the plant body. Okay, so we have to see the first pathway of transportation in plants, that is transport of water. See how this transport of water occurs in the plants. We have to see. Actually, see. In the plants, the transportation of water occurs with the help of xylem tissue. Okay, so xylem tissue help in the transportation of water. See, the first point here, in xylem tissue, vessels and tracheids of the roots, stems and leaves are interconnected to form continuous system. Okay, so in case of xylem tissue, vessels, tracheids of the roots, stem and leaves are interconnected to form continuous system. The second point here is this forms water conducting channels which reach to all part of the body, plant body. Okay, so because of interconnection of different tracheids and vessels, the water conducting channels are formed which reach to all part of the plant's body. The third point here is there are two mechanisms by which transportation of water occurs in plants. Okay, so transportation of water through the xylem occurs in two different pathways. The first, actually two different mechanisms. The first mechanism is root pressure and second mechanism is transpiration pull. See, the first mechanism, that is root pressure. So root pressure help in transportation of water in the plants. See, the first point in case of root pressure, root cells are always in contact with the water and minerals in the soil. Okay, so all of you know a root requires water. Roots are always in contact with the water. That's why root cells are always in contact with the water and minerals in the soil. The second point here is these root cells actively absorb the mineral ions. So because of contact of root cells with the minerals, they continuously absorb the minerals in their body. The third point here is this create a difference in concentration of mineral ion between the root and soil. Okay, so because of absorption of minerals into the root cell, there is a difference in concentration of the mineral ions created in between the root and soil. The fourth point here is to eliminate this difference, water moves into the root through the soil, from the soil. Okay, so actually there is a difference in the mineral ions created in the soil as well as in the root cell. That's why to nullify or to eliminate this difference, the water moves into the roots from the soil. The fifth point here is due to this, the root cells becomes turgid. That's why because of absorption of water, the root cells become turgid. Turgid means become swollen. The sixth point here is these turgid cells exert pressure on the adjacent cells called as root pressure. So because of absorption of water, the root cells become turgid and the turgid cells exert pressure on the surrounding cells. That's why that pressure exerted by turgid cells on the surrounding cells called as root pressure. The seventh point here is to reduce this pressure difference, there is a steady movement of water into the root xylem which creates a column of water that is steadily pushed upward. So again, because of this root pressure, that is pressure exerted by turgid cells on the another cells or surrounding cells, this pressure get reduced, or to decrease this pressure difference, there is a steady movement of water into the root xylem which create a column of water that is steadily pushed upward. The ninth point here is root pressure is sufficient to lift the water up in shrubs, small plants and small trees. Okay, so root pressure is the mechanism. It is sufficient to lift the water up in shrubs, small plants and small trees. The 10th point here is, however, this root pressure is not enough to move water over the height that we commonly see in the plants. Actually, in case of heighted plants, this root pressure mechanism is not sufficient to supply the water to higher region or higher part of the plants. The 11th point here is plants use transpiration pull mechanism to move water to highest point of the plant body. Okay, so along with the root pressure, there is another mechanism, that is transpiration pull, which help to supply the water to highest point of the plant body. So we can see here the mechanism of transfer of water through the root pressure. Okay, so root pressure mechanism help to transport the water. Here we can see there is a cross section of root, okay, which is in contact with the soil. We can see here the clumps of soil in which the root here is present. So water from the soil get absorbed into the root cells. We can see the direction of arrow. Okay, that direction of arrow indicates the flow of water from the soil into the root cells. That's why the root cells become turgid and the turgid cells exert pressure on the surrounding cell. That pressure is called as root pressure. Okay, so here this direction of arrow indicates the upward flow of water through the xylem, and there is a formation of this water channels also we can see. In the next slide, the second mechanism is transpiration pull. Okay, see the first point in the transpiration pull, The loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial part of the plant is called as transpiration. So we have already covered this transpiration definition in previous classes, that the loss of water from the in the form of water vapor from the aerial part of the plant, that is stomatal openings or different part of the aerial part of the plants, is called as transpiration. The second point here is transpiration process occurs through the stomata present on the leaves. Okay, so transpiration process occurs through the stomata present on the leaves. Actually this point we have already covered in the nutrition type of life process. In the nutrition of plants, the transportation actually is transpiration process we have covered there. The third point here is due to transpiration, water level in the epidermal layers of the leaf decreases. So because of transpiration, what happens, the epidermal layers present on the aerial part of the plants get decreases. If water present in the epidermal layer get decreases because of transpiration. The fourth point here is to compensate this lost water, the cells of leaf creates a section which pulls water from the xylem cells of the roots. Okay, actually there is loss of water occurs through the epidermal cells present on the aerial part of the plants. So to compensate this lost water, the water from the there is a suction created. That suction pulls the water from xylem cells of the root. The fifth point here is thus transpiration help in absorption and upward movement of water and minerals. Okay, so because of this, transpiration help in absorption and upward movement of water and minerals. The sixth point here is it also help in temperature regulation. The transpiration pull mechanism also help in the it also help in the temperature regulation mechanism in case of plants. The seventh point here is the effect of root pressure in transport of water is more important at night. Okay, so root pressure mechanism is very much important during for the transportation of water during night time. And the eighth point here is during the daytime, the transpiration pool becomes major driving force in the movement of water in the through the xylem. Okay, so during night time, root pressure help in transportation of water, and during daytime, transpiration pool help to transport the water, because during daytime sunlight is there and during night time sunlight is absent. That's why we can observe this mechanism, use of mechanism in both conditions, that is daytime and night time. The next slide, our next point is transportation of food and other substances. In that, the first point is the process of transportation of food produced in leaves to each cell of the plant's body and storing the excess food in roots, fruits and seeds is called as translocation. Okay, see, translocation means, in short, the transportation of food through the transportation of food from the producer site to different part of the plants is called as translocation. So we can say in short that transportation of food from leaves, okay, that is site of photosynthesis, to different part of the body is called as translocation. So here we can see that see the definition here. The first point, that is the process of transportation of food produced in leaves to each cell of the plant body and storing the excess food, that is except amino acid, in roots, fruits and seeds is called as translocation. The second point here is the phloem carries out translocation in both the upward and downward direction. Okay, see, the phloem tissue help in the transportation of food as well as translocation process in both upward and downward direction. The third point here is the translocation of food and other substances takes place through the sieve tubes with the help of adjacent companion cells. So the translocation of food and other substances takes place through the sieve tubes which are present in the phloem tissue, that help in the means actually along with sieve tubes, the adjacent companion cells also help in the transportation of food. The fourth point here is these substances are especially delivered to storage organs like root, fruits, seeds and growing organs. Okay, so the food substances and other materials are especially delivered or stored to the storage organs like roots, fruits, seeds and growing organs. The fifth point here is translocation process needs energy as it is not a simple physical process. Okay, so unlike the root pressure and transpiration mechanism, the translocation process needs energy. Okay, the actually translocation process needs energy, and this energy is required in the form of ATP. Okay, because translocation is not a simple physical process. The sixth point here is this energy is available to the plant in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so after that, seventh point is the materials like sucrose is transferred into the phloem tissue using the energy from the ATP. Okay, so here is an example of translocation, that the sucrose is a food material which is get transferred into the phloem tissue by using the energy in the form of ATP. The eighth point here is this increases the osmotic pressure of the tissues, causing water to move into it. Okay, so actually during translocation of sucrose, what happens, there is osmotic pressure of the surrounding tissue get increases because of movement of water into it. The ninth point here is this pressure moves the material in phloem to tissues, in phloem tissues which have less pressure. Actually, because of that creation of pressure, because of movement of water, this pressure is created. That pressure moves the food or substances from phloem to such tissue which has less pressure. The 10th point here is this allows the phloem to move material according to the plant's needs. Okay, so due to this, there is movement of food substances occurs as per the plant's needs. The 11th point here is, for example, in the spring, sugar stored in the root or stem tissue would be transported to the birds which need energy to grow. Okay, so this is an example of the translocation of food. Here, during spring season, the sugar stored in the root and stem tissue would be transported to birds which needs energy for the growth purpose. So here we can see the diagram over the transportation of food and other substances. Okay, so here we can see the structure of xylem, phloem. Okay, so in that the red colored sucrose particles are seen. That sucrose particles are synthesized in the green colored cells. Okay, green colored cell organelles called as chloroplast. Okay, so with the help of photosynthesis, there is sucrose formation occurs, and that sucrose substance or food substance get transferred from site of photosynthesis to site of storage organ. So here we can see the storage organ is a root cell, and this movement or translocation process is indicated with the help of red colored arrows. So the site means sucrose from the site of photosynthesis get moved with the help of companion cells into the sieve tubes. From the sieve tubes, again they are get entered into the companion cell, and from the companion cell it is get stored into the root cells. So within the root cells, that sucrose gets stored as per requirement. That stored sucrose again utilized for the production of energy as well as for different purposes. So see here, our transportation type of life process is completed here. So subscribe the video so that you will get the notifications of my upcoming videos. Till